where I have a recording in progress. Okay. We have had this experience where suddenly some things don't compute and doesn't make a lot of sense. It was because I went to Nashville to meet a friend whose son had called me and messaged to say that his father was walking up the stairs, fell, brain bleed, went to the hospital, and left the world in 2 minutes. And so it was a group of doctors, the whole community of doctors got together. They're all, different areas of the medical field, and they're all trying to make sense of it. And you could see there's a lot of emotions. And so we had some really nice discussions around this topic, like, what is it? What's going on? So we had some nice discussions last week, and I just wanted to give you some more information, not to scare you, actually. Death is the most beautiful thing, and that is what I wanted to share with you. Not the ugliness of death that we think it is, because it's something that we may not fully understand. And modern science does not give us enough information to subdue our fears and uncertainties around it. So the common idea is that, you know, there's nothing after death, that death is the end of life and it's all over because no one has come back from the dead to speak to us that we know of. Although in the wisdom text we study a lot about how sages bring the soul back to the body and the body starts speaking again. So it's pretty cool. There's many such uh, anecdotes in the wisdom text that we study about. And so uh, I wanted to share, this is the reason that got me searching to find my truth, because death was the biggest wake-up call for me. And and this starts with me being in the monastery when I joined at the age of 5. And I was approximately at age 14. I had never gone back home after leaving home. At age 14, there was a telegram. Do you know what a telegram is? It's not the app Telegram that we know of, most people, younger people know of. Telegram is this uh, way of messaging those days. I don't know how they did it, but there was a little sentence that it says, "Mother dead, her wish come home." That's all was on the telegram. And somehow that piece of paper ended up in the monastery. And it was meant for me. So the head monk in the monastery called all the boys in the corner and we huddled together. And he read out this message to me. This message was for me. Mother dead, her desire, come home. Sorry, her wish, come home. Something very cryptic and very small. And I didn't understand what that meant. So he explained to me that your mother has passed away and her desire is that you should go home. And I said, oh, okay. I did not know how to receive that information because I haven't had to experience death before that. And so it was very interesting for me, and someone I hadn't seen since the age of 5, and strong training on detachment. So I didn't know how to absorb that information. And the teacher also mentioned there is no point going anywhere, doing anything, because she's already gone. So there's no point of you going home. So I accepted that. But in my mind, this deep curiosity, what happened to my mother? Who was she? Where did she go? And so this nonstop questioning internally had led me onto a deep spiritual search. I was always seeking from the age of 5, but 14 was a big point, big turning point. Like, what is death? What happens? What happens to the body? What happens to the soul? Where does it go? And so I had spent a big amount of my time as a monk studying this art of departing from this body, and why do the world call it death, when in the spiritual circles they don't consider this to be death. In spiritual circles, you'd be very intrigued to know, they actually consider death to be a journey to other planets, easy journey to other planets. The sages, they pick their time. It is explained that those with the most evolved consciousness, they pick the time and the place and the circumstances under which they will leave this world. And I find that to be quite fascinating. Because most of us that I have observed in the more recent times, we take birth and we die in the same bed. And we never, most people don't leave their bodies in the bed that they claim to be theirs. I don't know if I'm making any sense. We are born in the hospitals. That bed doesn't belong to us. And when we die, we go to the hospital in the ER room. That also is not a bed that was ours. Our bed is in our room, in our homes. So this, I found it quite fascinating. That is not our bed that we come in, and is not our bed that we leave this world in. And so much fascination that I have cultivated to understand, why do the sages rejoice when it's their time to leave this world? Like, I don't understand. People are crying, people are lamenting, people are sad, and yet the sages are like happy and smiling, and they're jovial, and they're excited, and they look forward to it. So the sages explain that death is actually a beautiful way that the universe is telling you that the doors are opening up for them to enter into higher dimensions of existence. And that is why the sages are like, yay, party, They're super excited. They are going to go into a whole higher dimension of existence. And, it's something that people look forward to. Just as we look forward to going on vacations to different exotic places to see what's there. And, we are pumped up, we are amped up. We're like, yes, I can't wait, till, December 25th, so I can, be with my family on Christmas, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. So sages are always smiling at this opportunity when time comes to leave this body. And they leave this world with a smile. And this is what is very fascinating about spiritual life. And I was fascinated with the idea that you can smile instead of everyone around you crying and screaming and howling because of separation, and like completely. In India, I mean, if you watch death in India, it's so dramatic. oof, because they're given room to express, and they beat their chest and they cry and uh, it's so emotionally charged that if you are in that village, you will immediately start crying because everyone starts crying. The family starts crying, and then everyone starts crying. Everyone's hold on to each other, and they all just start crying. So it's very fascinating. And then there comes a sage in the midst of this death, and then he starts doing kirtan. He starts to sing, and they start to sing louder, and one by one, from tears to chanting. So this is what happens. So I want to share with you a little bit more detail because some people have written and asking more questions, and they want to know more and more and more about death. So I want to give you some facts, but it is not to scare you. Please don't be scared. These are just facts that I have gathered from the different Puranas. One of the sources is Garuda Puran, Padma Puran, and Srimad Bhagavat Puran, the three Puranas. So I will just share with you what happens. So it is explained that the time of death is something that is very difficult to know unless your consciousness is supremely evolved. So in other words, it is quite sudden and abrupt. And those that get warnings are extremely fortunate, like people who get terminal illnesses. You know that, oh, you're getting such an opportunity. Like, for example, 4 years ago, when I was given the news after a car accident, when I went into the hospital and they said, Veda, you have maybe a year to live. And I was like, wow, that is so cool. I get, you know, I get a whole year. Now I can prepare myself, you know. I was super excited. And this lady and the doctor in the hospital thought I was crazy. She thought I was mentally insane that someone, you know, is excited about, you know, that they get a timeline, you know. It's so nice, like when you get an eviction notice in the United States, the sheriff comes in and pastes a note on your door that you have 30 days to evict from the apartment. You know, and people freak out, oh my God, I have to find another place in 30 days. But it's such a beautiful thing that we get in the material world that we don't get when our consciousness is not evolved while we're in this body. We don't get that kind of notification. We're just gone like that, you know. So it explains in the Bhagavad Gita, in one of the Upanishads, uh, I think it's chapter 4, explains yam yam vapi smaram bhavam, that it is your consciousness that leaves this body and carries the mind, the intelligence, and the ego, is carried out of this body into another body. So death is something that is happening to us all the time. And consciousness is carrying the soul from one body to another. So it's fascinating. You know, like the verse we discussed last week, Dehi Nosmin, a soul transmigrates from boyhood to youth to old age. So that means from boyhood to youth, boyhood has died and you have now become youth. You have a new life. And from youth to old age, that means the youth is dead, is no longer there for us. So the change of bodies is basically what we consider death. It is simply and only that. Just like changing, you go in the morning and you take a shower and you change your clothes. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya. It's like changing your garments. So our consciousness at the time of death is what truly matters to what and determines what body you'll get in your next life. So it is the consciousness determines the next body you'll get. For example, when you're a boy, whatever kind of activities you did as a boy, as a childhood, when you become youth, it'll determine whether you become a little chubby, you get some extra love handles, or you become this slim trim with six packs. It determines. Every action and choices that we make in our lives determines the next body. So consciousness, when we leave this body, will determine the next body. And so we're going to understand about three kinds of bodies that I would like to discuss with you. One is the body that we have. This is called the transitional body. That body transitions into another body that is ever changing. This body is ever changing. And then there is something called the body of pain, or it's called the Jatana Sharir. Jatana means pain or suffering. Sarir, a body of pain, is the other kind of body. So there is Jada Sarir, means the material body, the one we have. Jatana Sharir, a body of suffering. And then there is a body, it's called Divya Sarir, or spiritual body, the body of pleasures. So body of pleasure, or Divya, or transcendental body, and the body of pain, the body of pain gives you nothing but pain. There is nothing in that body other than just non-stop pain. And then the transcendental body is the body of nothing but pure, unlimited happiness. It's called the Divya Sarir. And this Sarir, this material body, is the transitional body that determines. We can pick and choose. Do we want a permanent suffering body, or we want a permanent pleasure body? So this is called the transitional body. These are the three bodies that we're going to be discussing. So when this body, the transitional body, changes and the soul leaves this body, then we have a very unique opportunity. What happens to the soul, the consciousness, is that between 3 hours and 15 minutes is how long the soul remains before it gets the next body. Okay, and the second one is 24 hours. The soul remains for 24 hours before it gets the next body. And the third level is when the soul lingers on for 10 days after leaving this transitional body. And the fourth level is when the soul lingers on for 1 year before it goes into another one of these bodies. And then the fifth one is when the soul leaves this body and goes into eternal existence of transcendental joy. So that's called Divya Sarir. Okay, so now I want to break down a little bit more what happens when the soul dies, like details that we can find in the wisdom texts. And I had gone to Netherlands to help one of our students and our friend depart this body, because it's such a beautiful art, and the journey is so transcendental that it completely awakens your own consciousness and raises it up. Keshav, you want to say something? No, okay. So what happens when the soul leaves this body is that the body feels like there is 30,000 scorpions biting this body at the same time. That is the pain that this body feels. And this body, the transitional body, is not a body that can tolerate extreme pains or extreme pleasures. Because imagine when you have too much fun in this body, it's too much for this body, and this body just shuts off. Or you, like, for example, drinking. You drink, and after drinking maybe 24 bottles of whatever you're drinking, or 10 bottles, or maybe less bottles, your body's like, okay, I can't take too much anymore pleasure of alcohol in this body. And the body just gets sick. Because this body is not meant for that extreme high pleasures. Similarly, when this body is too much pain, the body just shuts down. It just becomes unconscious because the body cannot handle so much suffering. This body, this transitional body. So when the soul leaves this body, it is because the body feels like there is 30,000 scorpions biting this body, the pain. And that's when the soul is evicted from this body because it's too painful. So when it dies, we're going to discuss a little bit this. When the soul leaves this body, then the soul goes through a process of meeting the scribe. Scribe is the clerk that works in this kingdom of Yamaraj. Yamaraj is the presiding deity of transition, or the deity of death, some people call him. But he is the one that determines what body he gets. And how does he determine? Because he has this incredible secretary, and the secretary's name is Chitra Gupta. Chitra means picture, Gupta means secret. So he is like, takes pictures of everything that we do in this world. It is being watched. He's like the eyes of the divine that is constantly keeping record so that no one ever experiences injustice. Injustice is a material phenomenon because in the spiritual world, there is no such thing as, spiritual lens does not have this lens of injustice because everything is just. It is decisions and choices that we make. So this Chitragupta, he monitors everybody's actions simultaneously, every living entity in the world. Whatever they do, he captures it. So we get to meet him. But before we even go that far, the messengers of Yamaraj, who is the presiding deity of transition, he has messengers. They're called Yamadutas. Yama means rules. He's the god of rules. Dutas means messengers. He regulates the rules and regulations, is what Yama means. Yamaraj, the king of rules and regulations. And so his messengers are called Yamadutas. And they're not described to be really nice people. They're described to be very ugly. They are ferocious, and their hands are very, very scruffy, that when they touch you, it'll just peel the skin off of you. And there's very, very dark descriptions of them. And I'm not telling you this again to scare you, please. I'm just presenting some yoga facts, and then we can discuss around it. So, as the soul is leaving this body, because of the pain, these Yamadutas arrive there to take the soul to the god of rules and regulations, Yamaraj. And the way they do it is they actually put a rope around your neck and they drag you. For those who are pious, they leave this world and get their next body in 3 hours and 15 minutes. They immediately transition into a next body. Okay? That's how long it takes for them to go through that transition. Those who are pious. And those who are not so pious, and they have some piety in their life, but not fully pious, then it takes 24 hours. So imagine they're being dragged for 24 hours to the king of rules and regulations for 24 hours. That's how long their body is being dragged. And that body they get is not this body, it's the body of pain. Please keep in mind. Jatana Sharir in Sanskrit, the body of suffering. And those who are average, just good people in the world, they have done some pious deeds, but overall they're good people. Then they get to journey till the next body for 10 days. So 10 days is how long it takes for them to get their next body. And those who are very sinful people, who are just always not very kind and causing suffering and pain to others, those sinful people, it takes them 1 year for the next body. Okay? So that journey is a 1 year journey. So what does that journey look like? 3 hours and 15 minutes, 24 hours, 10 days, and 1 year. What does that look like? It explains that pathway to this God of rules and regulations is very, very hot coals that you're walking on. And it's so, I forget the temperature that I studied, I don't remember it now, but it's so hot that human body, as soon as you put on it, the human body will melt. But this body that we get does not melt. It is only a body of suffering. So you can feel the temperatures, and they're dragging you through this path. And eventually, at the end of this path, there is a place called Vaitarani. Vaitarani is a river. Oh, before I forget, before you get to the river, on the side of this path, there are trees. And there are people who are getting some shade from the scorching sun above and the heat from the bottom. You're being cooked from the top and from the bottom. And as you're walking on this path, you will see on the side of the path there are trees. And there are people who are getting some shelter and some shade from the scorching sun. And those are people who have done good deeds, such as planting trees and do something for the environment. And those people, they get some shelter from under those trees. I don't know, does this sound pretty scary? Not to scare you, huh? This is just simply to, I'm just presenting some facts, huh? From the yoga text. So, and then the people, they actually notice that there are people who are getting shelter under the trees. And they ask, hey, why are they getting shelter? And why not me? And the Yamadutas are explaining is because they have done something nice for the environment. So that's why they get shelter. Anyway, and some people, they get drink of water. Imagine this journey is very hot. And some people are getting water, some people getting rest, some people getting treatments. These are all due to the pious credits that we have done. We can walk in the shade or we can walk in the heat. And then finally, this Vaitarani river, this river is descriptions are very, very not nice because it's a river of urine, pus, and stool. So it's like the sewer system of the of the hellish planets. We're just having fun with it, okay? So please don't get too scared. It explains, huh? And then this path of crossing this river is so interesting. They actually have boats on this river that you can cross. And these boats are people that you have served. When you have served others and you did not live a selfish life And those are boats. You can be on the boat and you can cross the river of this nasty smelling, because you can smell that, all of that, as you're walking on this path. And you get to come to the other side. And on the other side, you meet Yamaraj. And that's why it is explained that when someone leaves this body, a saintly person's body, anyone who leaves their body, it is cremated within 3 hours and 5 minutes, 15 minutes. Because the soul doesn't have to stick around and suffer and be in pain. The interesting thing is that when the soul leaves this body, the jatana sarir, the painful body, they can actually hear everything that you're saying and every emotion that you're expressing, and they can smell and they can feel. And all the memories of their life is activated when the soul leaves this body. Okay, I'm going backwards a little bit. So when the soul leaves this body, all the memories of everything that he has done wrong in his life, that memory comes back, he gets it back. So that when he comes to judgment, he cannot say, oh, I didn't do that. Yes, I have. You can lie. Every time you laugh, Yamadutas, they give you a nice little slap, it says. They're like, oh, you're gonna lie? Slap. So you get your memory back, just like we know that when you're in the mother's womb, you remember everything about all your previous lives. And the pain of coming out of your mother's birth canal erases all the memories of all the lifetimes previous. So similarly, when we leave this body, we get our memory back. It's fully activated. And we remember everything that we have done wrong. And we have deep regrets. Why did I do this mistake? Why did I do that mistake? And that comes when we leave this body. But sometimes it's a little too late. And what happens is people all around us, the more they cry, the more they lament, the more they, show those emotions, deeper the pain that the soul feels in the jatana sharir, because the pain is only due to attachment. If there is no attachment, there is no pain. You'll notice in this world, if there's no attachment, there is no suffering. Suffering is only there when there is attachment. So, I don't know if I'm scaring all of you. I can stop. Or should I continue? Or we can have more discussions around it.
Please continue.
Okay, please continue. So, okay.
Yeah, I think so too. Get to the point.
Yes, Dimaya.
You are updated.
So the real point we're discussing this is to understand that it is our consciousness that we have to cultivate in our life, the most powerful tool to eradicate any suffering that we will ever have to endure in life, in this or the next, is elevation of our consciousness. And it is very, very vital that we take our life, that we need to understand, if we know life, then we will never be afraid of life. Sorry, we'll never be afraid of death. It is only because we do not know life that we are afraid of death. And once you know life, you will try to cultivate even higher spectrums of dimensions of life that is accessible to us. And that is why we always emphasize on personal spiritual cultivation, cultivation of one's consciousness, of one's divinity. But anyway, the other part gets a little bit more it just gets, it's not nice. The descriptions of the soul's journey when we are not evolved in our consciousness and we have committed so many heinous crimes in our life, then it's difficult. And this body that we have, it is simply, it's called the Seshapapa. Seshapapa means the last remaining opportunity to burn off the sinful activities that we have in our life. So that means whatever suffering or trauma that we experience in this life, it is very, very small in comparison to the pain and suffering that is caused by criminal and sinful activities in this lifetime. And this suffering, the Sesha Papa we get, is simply, the suffering in this world is simply to awaken our dormant consciousness to inquire about eternality, to inquire about the self, to seek out the truth. People, when they suffer, when they're having difficulties, we want to know, why are we suffering? And the reason the suffering is only there is only so that we can ask these questions. Why are we suffering? What is this suffering? What is beyond this suffering? And that is when spiritual enlightening happens. So the suffering is simply there in this world so that the lights can go on and we can continue on the journey of spiritual enlightenment. Okay, I want to stop because I think I've given you so much bad news. So we want to have discussions about good news. So the good news is that when your consciousness is evolved and you leave this world with detachment, then you get this divya sarir, this transcendental body of permanent spiritual enjoyment. Imagine this body does not get old. There's no disease, birth, old age to this spiritual body. Because we have subtle bodies, emotional bodies, just like the Jatana Sarir, the suffering body. They can see everything and feel everything that you're going through, but you cannot communicate with them. You cannot understand what they're going through because we're limited. So this transcendental body that we get when we leave this world with high spiritual consciousness is the goal of life, because that is who we truly are. That is regaining our true spiritual identity of being in eternal, joyful state of consciousness. That is called Divya Sarir, or transcendental body. Okay, that's the good news. Good news is always short, bad news is always long. That's why we turn on the TV, there's non-stop breaking news, continuously breaking our hearts. So please, any reflections, thoughts, questions, doubts?
There are a bunch of questions in the chat.
Okay, anyone wants to read? Balaram, you want to read the questions?
Yeah. The first one is just iPhone. It says, I want to pop all karmic seeds and not go into another body. How do we do this?
I want to pop all the karmic seeds. Yeah, this is the life. This is the transitional body we have. We can crack anything and everything. This is the plan, this is the time, this is the place, this is the circumstances where we can end suffering forever. Because all the decisions and the choices we make. And the whole point of us getting together doing sanghas is for me to daily remind you, weekly remind you that your spiritual journey is the most important thing. And that's why we need to cultivate spiritual consciousness. Seek out good association. Every day, do something good for others. And cultivate the highest level of spiritual consciousness by meditation, proper breath work, conscious dieting, respecting this beautiful vehicle that that God's given us. We are supposed to be conduits for God's love to be shared with the world. So that is the consciousness we have to cultivate. And that's how we break away from, what was it? The cell phone addiction, Balaram? What was it?
Cell phone addiction?
The question.
Oh, popping the seeds.
Popping the seeds of your bad karma, yes. That's how we do it. What is question number 2?
Okay, next, Laura asks, how old are these teachings? Did the Christian idea of hell come from this?
I do not know where all the Christian ideas come from, but one thing I have studied is that all the sages in India, they actually respect Jesus to be one of the greatest sages. And he is revered. He is actually one of my gurus. He's one of my teachers. His teachings are very profound and deep. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of the teachings, the ideas, have come from him knowing about the ancient wisdom texts. But in the yoga text that we study, it explains that it's over 10 million years old, and then it was again reestablished 5,000 years ago. So that every information that I have shared, it is straight out of the wisdom text. I just try to make light of it because they always give you the facts and raw, and it's scary, and it's beautiful as well. So 5,000 years old is the answer to the question, Laura. Next question, Laura.
Okay, Demaya asks, do the Yamadutas go after every living entity, non-devotees as well, rather they are aware of them or not?
Beautiful question. Yamadutas are messengers of this God of rules and regulations. There's 14 planetary systems. The domain below this planet, this earthly planet, there are 7 planetary systems. They are called the Naraka, the planets of the hellish regions. And their domain is all the way up to, what is it called? Satyaloka. The domain of Yamaraj and Yamadutas is all the way up to Satyaloka. And above this planet is called the Swarga Loka, the planets of enjoyment. Not permanent enjoyment, material enjoyment. Swarga Loka. And then there is Jana Loka, Tapa Loka, Mahar Loka, and Satya Loka. Those are 4 planets which are strictly for people who want to cultivate more spiritual awareness and consciousness. And from there, you just skyrocket to the highest realms of the spiritual world, where that we're talking about that transcendental happiness. And the cool part of all of this is that this transitional body we have, we don't even have to go to the higher planets. We can just go all the way to the top. This is the only planet that gives you that privilege and the capacity to shoot all the way to the top. So this is why this earthly life is considered to be the most opportunities, the life that has the most opportunities and the biggest benedictions, because from here you can go all the way, shoot all the way to the top. This is the secret of this planet. The other planets don't have this special secret. So this is explained in the Vedas. And does the Yamadutas have their domain? Yamadutas have their domain for people who are not on the level of spiritual consciousness, transcendental consciousness. The Yamadutas have their domain. And the funny thing is that you will know, like I was teaching some of the students, to decipher where that person went. When you look at a dead body, you look at the symptoms of the dead body, how they died, and you'll see when someone who's not in great consciousness, when they die, their body temperature goes up and their body will sweat because they're so afraid and that fear, and they can't do anything, and their body is sweating. And so their body will be sweaty, they'll urinate, they'll defecate, and their eyes will have signs of deep fear. But those who are in spiritual consciousness, their body is always calm, and their face will be, they will actually look like they're smiling. I think last week I mentioned about one of my teachers who left his body in front of me. He was just talking to his students and he said, "Okay, guys, so nice being with all of you. My time has come and I'm going to leave now." So he smiles at everyone and then he looks up, opens his mouth, and then he drops his head and he leaves this world. This, my dear friends and beautiful souls, happened in front of me. So I have seen what spiritual consciousness looks like at the time of death, and it's so beautiful. I'm like, what the hell just happened, you know? And it's amazing, amazing to see. He just sits there, he finds the right place, he is in a very sacred place. You know, spiritual energy vortex is there at the right time in the association of his disciples, just having a spiritual discourse. And he's like, okay, I'm done. Okay, bye, everybody, gone. And that's so beautiful. And then you will see other spectrum is, you know, people not very pleasant to watch. Just to be in that room with them is actually quite scary. Balaram, next question. We'll try to cover all the questions because we're going to change the topic. No more death for...
Right. Several people asked about the Krishna Dutas, the Vishnu Dutas. Do you think you covered that, or you have more?
Yeah, so there is two kinds of messengers. There is the divine angels and the angels of death. They're called the Vishnu Dutas or Yama Dutas. And they have their unique functions. So when we leave this world with high spiritual consciousness, then the Vishnu Dutas will come and they will take us.
Nice.
Next.
Okay, there's bunches of questions.
We have 3 minutes.
Okay, rapid fire mode then. You ready?
Yes.
How does 7 lifetimes come into this?
7 lifetimes is, we're talking about partners. That partners, we have 7 lifetimes together. We need to burn each other's karma and we have to harass each other till both become spiritually elevated. So that's where the 7 lifetimes together comes in. Like
Okay.
life companions, yes.
Next. Kid asks if you ever saw Krishna.
Yes, I have.
Nice.
Next.
Okay, Ewing and who was it? Ingrid asked about suicide and ghosts and why do they linger here on Earth?
Yes, yes. We discussed, remember? 3 hours, 15 minutes to 1 year. This is exactly what we're talking about, the suffering that they're going through right now. And so, yeah, we don't want to linger around. And suicide is very heavily condemned in the yoga text because we're taking the position of God. We are not God to determine who lives and who dies. We should never make a decision to kill ourselves because we are going against the law of nature and there's a price to pay for it. If your life is already painful, that means something we need to do right and not add another wrong to the wrong and make your life even more painful.
Okay.
So euthanasia is not recommended by the wisdom text.
And just to be clear, so you described on this call 2 things. You described what happens on Earth after you die, the different time periods, and you also described other planets with other kinds of pain bodies, right?
Yes.
Okay, those are separate. Okay, and then Narayani asks, what happens if you chant the Maha Mantra over someone that is passing?
Oh my gosh. That's it. Sound vibration. When we talk about Mahamantra, the sound vibration, it is so powerful. Everything in this world is vibration. Please understand, my dear, beautiful souls, we are vibrating, continuously vibrating. The thoughts in our mind, the bad thoughts, are bad vibrations that completely disrupt the environment that we live in and anyone that comes in contact with us. So when we create the spiritual vibration around someone who's leaving, you are completely changing the vibration in that room, in that vicinity, and that vibration you're creating is going to attract the most powerful divine vibration to come and say, you know what, you need to be with me because you are creating the same sound as me, so please come home. So that's the answer to your Narayani Devi. Balaram, what other questions? Are we done?
That's all of them. 10:03, we're done.
Wow. I was afraid to actually have this conversation with all of you. And the reason is because I do not want to scare you. I have zero desire to scare you. And only desire I have is to tell you that, you know, I have deep love and appreciation for each and every one of you because you have taken on a journey of self-discovery. You have taken on the journey to elevate your consciousness. You have taken on a mission to vibrate in a higher frequency. You are seeking your light and your truth. And this is what this Sangha is all about. And my seva to all of you is simply to share my heart with you and everything that I have been taught my whole life. My whole life, I have not been taught anything other than all these wisdom texts. Like my head is just like shoved with spiritual data. And that's all. And so, and I have practiced my spiritual life for over 40 years. So I just simply want to share. That's all. Not to scare you. Okay. I think we have scared people enough. I think Lee wants to share something. Lee, did you want to share something? No. Okay. I thought you tried to raise your hand. So beautiful souls, I'm so happy to be with all of you. There is so much data on the details of the journey of the soul, so much details. You cannot even imagine, like minute to minute details. Like I remember telling Keshavi when she was watching, Durga Devi was also there when Kamala Devi left her body in the spiritual world when we were in Belgium. I give them really, really specific details of signs to watch. And I don't know if you remember, Keshavi, we were able to predict every single minute. We didn't predict, we observed every single minute to the T as described in the Puranas. Would you agree with that, Keshavi?
Oh yeah, I remember it. And yeah, it was exactly like you described.
I just followed the book to see if the book was right. And that's what we observed with one of our dear students whose consciousness was very elevated. Okay, Allison wanted to share something before we leave.
Hi, it's very wild that today's talk is about death because today's the 1-year anniversary that my mom passed away. And I was planning on throwing the rest of her ashes into our lake because that's where we put her ashes last year. Is there any kind of mantra or song or anything that would, because this is the 1-year anniversary, that you would recommend to facilitate her journey into her? I believe that she probably took a whole year to get to where she needs to be. So a send-off, any recommendations for her send-off today?
Allison, my recommendation and my sincere, deep, highly recommended criteria is that you should come to India with her ashes. There is nothing greater to do for someone then to take their ashes to the sacred place of the Ganges in the Himalayas. Because Ganges is the mother, divine mother, and she will take all her children. Doesn't matter where they're stuck. So I would recommend anyone who has ashes, anyone that is you feel are stuck in the world, get something from them and come with me to India, and we will guarantee you, because this is what million, 1,000-year-old, 5,000-year-old yoga texts are teaching us. This is the way to set them free. And every year, last year, there's about 5, 6 of the students that brought their ashes of their mothers, brothers, sisters. And you'd be surprised. The freedom you feel inside and the release that you feel inside when they're gone. And so this is my recommendation. Just throwing in a random lake and river, I have never read that recommendation anywhere in the yoga text, because they're like, okay. Because I don't remember reading it anywhere about any remains, physical remains being thrown in the mountains, or people have these very romantic notions. Oh, I will go to the mountains and sprinkle it on the top of the pine cones. And, they have all this, very romantic ideas. Those are nice romantic ideas for this mortal world. But the most romantic idea for the soul to be free is to take him to the Divine Mother. And Divine Mother is the Ganges. And if you're not able to come, give it to someone who is coming to India. And I highly recommend you to also come, because your mother will actually, whoever it is that will look over you as you set them free, they're like, thank you, Allison. And once they're there, they're always hoping for you to make it there too. So that's the cool part. When you do something good for others like that, that is the highest good you can do. And so what do you think they're gonna do? They're like, wow, she gave me the best. And guess what I'm gonna do? I'm going to give her the best. And so this is how we all go back to our original home, the home of eternal happiness. And that is,
You hear that?
so Allison, sorry I could not give you a satisfactory answer.
No, you did. And it's funny because I was actually looking at your India retreat this morning.
This is it.
So yeah, I need more information, but
Keshavi will sign you up. I know that Keshav is coming, Ava is coming, Balaram's coming. Jennifer, are you coming? And Lee is coming. Nil, are you coming? Maybe Laura's coming. I don't know. I know that Lisa is coming. Durga Devi is coming. I want everyone to come to India with me, and because we're just going to have a spiritual party, Oh, Brittany is coming. Yay. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I have never had more fun in my life than to go to India with people that don't know as much about India, because then I get to like really share my heart like abundantly, Elena is coming too. Yay! From Bulgaria. Thank you, Elena. And I'm hoping Kit will come, but I don't think Durga Devi is bringing Kit. So anyway, thank you all so much, beautiful souls.
Thank you.
It's such a great pleasure to be with all of you every week.
Thank you, Prabhu.
And please share your heart with someone. Please serve someone. Please do something to accumulate more spiritual credits. I'm hoping Susan will come with us to India too. I've been requesting her to join me for almost a year and a half now. And one day my prayers will hit her heart, and her heart will jump out of her body and say, yes, I'm coming. Okay. Oh, Leonie is coming too. Yes. And she's bringing her son with her to India. How cool is that? And I got to come to India with Isabel. This is all so much fun. Okay. Thank you, beautiful souls. I've taken too much of your time. Please have a wonderful day and wonderful night for those of you in Europe and other places. And we'll see you next week. Namaste, everyone.
Namaste.
Hey, thank you so much.
Namaste.
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 Namaste.